I think that song was on, but we're so glad that you're here today. A couple of weeks ago, I went to the mayor's luncheon in Bastrop, Texas, and it was the theme of that conference was passing the baton on to the next generation, and they put a quote up that just kind of really stung my heart, and I mentioned it last week a little bit in passing, also on Wednesday, but I want to show you the verse that they put up. And it says, if we don't teach our children to follow Christ, the world will teach them not to. And I don't think there's ever been a truer statement in my lifetime than that. When I was growing up, all the kids in the neighborhood, not everybody went to church, but I didn't have too many friends that didn't know about God and didn't know about Christ or Jesus, had not heard that name and had not known what Jesus had come to do in terms of giving his life for ours. Is this unbelievable sacrifice from our heavenly Creator. And I didn't have too many friends that didn't know that story, but that's not the case anymore because the world is not teaching that. And when we send our kids out into Rome, don't be surprised when they come back as little Romans. That's kind of the message. And so I thought, you know what, we need to be an example. And we need to realize that there's a new generation coming, and we need to make sure that what we pass on to this next generation is going to help bring light into this world full of darkness. We live in a different world than when I was a kid. The pressure is on to our young people right now, and it's overwhelming them. You can read all kinds of polls and all kinds of studies to know that's true. The pressure to be perfect. In school, it's all about you got to make good grades, and that was the case in my life. But my dad was just happy if I made a C, if I could get by. But you got to take the AP classes if you want to go to college. You got to be in all the sports that's out there. If you're going to be successful, you got to work hard. 70% of parents believe that their children will actually get a scholarship. Did you know that? I read that this week. But the pressure's on our kids. The pressure to succeed, the pressure to get likes, the pressure to get followed, the pressure to conform to the world and what the world's message is. Just the pressure on their body image is unbearable, especially in our teen girls nowadays. When I was a kid, you go to school, I got bullied on the way to school. I was getting bullied by this one kid. My mom says, if you don't hit him upside the head with a brick, don't even come home. That's what she told me. That was my mom's advice. So I did put a brick into a little sack the next day and hit him in the head. But I got in trouble for that one. Don't do that. But when I was in school, we'd get bullied on the playground. But when I got home, I didn't get bullied anymore. But that's not the case. Now with the social media and the internet, and it's just, we've got young people that are sitting in their rooms at night being bullied all the time. According to a CDC report published in just 2021, teen girls are experiencing record high levels of violence, sadness, and suicide risk. Suicide is so up in our teen girls. Nearly 3 in 5 U.S. teen girls feel persistently sad or hopeless, which is double that of the boys. And since I'm a boy, I can tell you that us boys, we don't let people know what's going on in our hearts nearly like the young girls do. Our kids are drowning. It's like, in this ever-changing, demanding world. And if we don't teach them about the one who overcame the world, Jesus, I've come and I've overcome the world. If we don't teach them about Christ and overcoming, then the world's going to teach them not to follow Jesus Christ. Not to follow Jesus Christ. And so that's what I want to talk about today. I want to talk about building a family legacy that goes beyond self to selflessness. That's not the message of the world, is it? The message of the world, it's all about you. We live in the I world. I this and I that, and everything's I. But Christ says, no, it's not about you. It's about others, and it's about selflessness. And I wanted to show you a video today about building a family legacy based on Christ. And I found some good sermons out there, but I couldn't find a little 4-minute video that kind of said anything. I typed inspirational. I used every kind of search word I could think of. And all that kept coming back was about leaving a family legacy was about leaving them money, leaving them an inheritance, leaving them property or whatever it might be. And that's just not what I wanted to talk about. Although I did find a funny joke, if y'all want to hear the joke I found. Yeah, you want to hear? Yeah, we got to have a joke. So a woman, her husband dies. Let's say his name was Bill, and in Bill's will, he had written that he wanted his wife to at least spend $30,000 on his funeral. He wanted a big funeral. And so the day of the funeral came, and a friend of the wife came up to her and says, "I heard about your husband, wanting you to spend $30,000 on the funeral. Did you really spend $30,000 on this funeral?" And she goes, "Yes, I did." She goes, "Well, it's nice and everything, but $30,000. She says, "Well, the funeral actually costs $7,000. I think I gave $500 to the church. It cost me about $500 for the meals and everything, and I spent the rest on the memorial stone." And she goes, "The memorial stone? My goodness, that's like what, $22,000? How big is this thing?" She goes, "Oh, it's about 2.5 carats." Wrong hand? I'm sorry, this hand. Come on, I worked on that. But that's not the family legacy I want to talk about. But that's what the world would teach you. That's the inspirational videos. Go for your goal. Make sure you get there. Make sure you succeed in the world. And that's not what I want to talk about, because I want to talk about something that goes beyond us to others. That goes beyond just my life. My life is coming toward the end. I know how long typical lifespan of human beings are, and mine is getting toward the end of it. And so I'm more concerned now than ever about leaving a family legacy with a sense of a purpose, with a vision that says this is who we are, this is what we stand for, and this is what I want to pass on to my children, my children's children, and if I'm around here long enough, to my children's children's children. There's an old verse that I've seen on coffee cups and people's walls, and they hang it up all the time. My sister said this one time when she was going through a difficult time, and it goes like this. This is one of those plaques you can buy and hang on your wall. It's Jeremiah 29:11. And I know it doesn't look like a family legacy, but we're going to get that just in a minute. It says, "For I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord. Plans to prosper you and not to harm you. Plans to give you a hope and a future." And we go, wow, that's a promise. And that's why we hang it on our walls, right? We love that promise. And no matter what's going on in our life, we cling to that promise. And you might be saying, but that has nothing to do with building a family legacy. But what if I was to tell you, this is not a promise to you? This is not a promise for you. This is not a promise for me. And I've certainly had a lot of people quote this verse, that are struggling. God has a plan for me. He has a hope for me. He has a future for me. He wants to prosper me. But when you read the Bible, there's 3 rules that you have to follow. And it's similar to the 3 rules if you're going to buy real estate. Anybody know what the 3 rules of buying real estate is? Location. What's the second one? Location. What's the third one? Location. Now, what's the 3 rules when it comes to reading our Bible? Context. 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 We have to put this verse into context. Who was these words written to? And if you're going to find out who these words are written to, well, you don't have to go back too far. You just have to go back to the beginning of Jeremiah chapter 29, and I just happened to bring that verse to you so we could see who these words were for, because they weren't for us. Now, they are going to apply to us, but they weren't for us. So this is the beginning of Jeremiah 21. He says, "This is the text of the letter that the prophet Jeremiah sent from Jerusalem to the surviving elders among the exiles, and to the priests, the prophets, and all the other people Nebuchadnezzar had carried into exile from Jerusalem to Babylon." I know you may not know the history, but about 600 years before Jesus, the king of Babylon, this king called Nebuchadnezzar, came in and literally destroyed Jerusalem. He destroyed the temple that Solomon had built for God. He rounded up all the prominent citizens and all the prominent prophets, and he took them back with him and capturing the city to Babylon. And that's who this letter was written to. All these people that were living, one of them was the prophet Ezekiel. You may have heard of him. They all got sent to Babylon. And so that's who this letter was on. And so when you put this verse into context, the promise wasn't made to you and I, but it was a promise but it does apply to us, and that's what I want to talk about. So now I know some of you may be sad that this verse doesn't apply to you because you've got to hang it on your wall and you got a coffee cup right now, and that's okay. I want you to keep it because I want you to be reminded of what it really means toward the end of our service, right? But so if you're sad that this is not your promise, I looked through the Bible. I wanted to find a promise that we could all hold on to that will be yours. This one's right. This is our promise made to us. It's 2 Timothy 3:12. Here's the promise you can take home with you today. Okay? In fact, everyone who wants to live a godly life in Christ Jesus will be persecuted. That one's yours. You can have that promise. Right? Just take that home, put that on a coffee cup, hang it up on the wall. Right? Hang it up. Let me show you the verse that came before that promise that was made in Jeremiah 29:11. This is 29:10. This is what the Lord says. When 70 years, so he's writing this letter to these people who are in exile, when 70 years are completed for Babylon, I will come to you, fulfill my good promise to bring you back to this place. And this place was Jerusalem. So in fact, if you go read 2 Chronicles, I think chapter, I wrote it down, 36, 70 years after this letter, in fact, God moves in the heart of a guy, the king of Persia at the time, a guy named King Cyrus, and he ends the Babylon exile. He says, you can go home. But at the time, the city was destroyed. The temple was gone. The walls had tumbled. And it wouldn't be for another 80 years until a guy named Nehemiah would go back to Jerusalem and get the walls rebuilt. And so it's going to take 150 years after the letter was written for the promise to be filled, which means not a single person this letter was written to, actually got to receive the promise. Not one of them. Not a one. And why would that be the case? Because this promise here, whether you can see it or not, is about building a family legacy. This is a multi-generational promise which says, I may not be the one who receives this promise, but maybe, just maybe, if I follow God's will in my life and in my family's life, maybe my children will, or maybe my children's children will. Jesus' death on the cross was a multi-generational promise. Jesus died 2,000 years ago. But since the cross, every generation that's been born can come to the cross and claim the promise of God's grace and his forgiveness in Christ. Because Jesus just didn't die for his generation. He just didn't die for that one group of people that he was hanging on the cross in front of. He died for you and he died for me. God is a multi-generational God. We've got to raise our thought pattern up a little bit and realize who God really is. You know, if you can believe that Jeremiah 29:11 is not about you, but about your family and about your future, your family, and that it's a multi-generational promise, then I think maybe you can say, you know, though he slay me like Job, still I will trust him. No matter what's going on in my life, I'm going to trust God, right? I'm going to trust God. I hope this can free some of you from the lie that's been taught by so many churches out there that if you truly love God, that if you follow Jesus, he's going to bring you wealth, he's going to bring you health, and he's going to bring you prosperity, and no harm is going to ever come to you. And I go, are you kidding me? Man, when people hear that and stuff starts happening in their life, you know what they do? They abandon that belief because it's not true. And in the abandoning of that message, they abandon God. They abandon whatever. Because it's not true. It's not true. I mean, let's talk, how about the apostles of Jesus? How about those guys? Don't you think they loved God just a little bit? Right? How about those guys? Don't you think they had just a little bit of faith? You know how they died? One was run through with a spear, and one was beaten to death with a branch from an olive tree. One was stoned. The Apostle Paul was beheaded in Rome. The first disciple of Jesus, Peter, tradition tells us that he was crucified upside down. If you understand Jeremiah 29:11 is not about you, but it's about building a family legacy that will change the world and will change your family, then it will change everything about your life. And so, just for the fun of it, I'm going to go read some verses that was before this verse about what God wanted these people to do in order so that one day they would have a hope for a future. And so God says this in verse 5. He says, you build houses and you settle down. Plant gardens and eat what they produce. You lay down some roots, people. You're going to be here for a while, right? You need to live like you're staying. And this one hit home to me because when I was 10 years old, my mom and dad, we lived in Lexington, Kentucky. That's where all my family was. That's where my grandparents were. That's where all my cousins were. And my mom and dad came to and said, we're moving to Texas. And I go, Texas? And at the time, I thought Texas was just tumbleweeds, cowboys, and desert. It pretty much is, if you go a little bit that way. You know? And I remember being, and I told this on Wednesday night, that I got here and I was so excited. I mean, literally, I grew up barefooted in Kentucky. We didn't have stickers in Kentucky. We had bluegrass in Kentucky. And when I got down here, the first thing I did is I ran outside with no shoes on into what looked like a green grass. What it was those sticker burrs the state has. And my feet was covered, and I remember asking Mom, what's this about? She goes, Texas is worse than Kentucky. God's punishing these people down here. No, she didn't say that. She told me about Adam and Eve and how they abandoned God. And so, yeah, I understand what it means to move and to go somewhere new and to settle down and roots. You know what my parents did when they got here? I go, oh, right. You know, because they were around their parents. And, and around their parents, you got to go to church. Mom and Dad's going to church. But now they're free. Maybe we don't have to go to church. And the first thing they did is they found us a church to go to. We skipped no Sundays. We went to a little church in Austin called Lanier Baptist. And it was there that I would be asked to go to a camp. And that's why I'm excited about the camp for our young people. And at camp, I became a Christian. And to this day, I'm telling you, it was the most unbelievable night of my life when I felt God's Spirit come into me. And although I've gotten off track a time or two, I just keep trying to get to Him and be like Him as much as I can, not only in my life, but in my family's life. Growing up, we would go out and play games. When I was a child, it wasn't like the structured games that kids have today. I know you've got your helmet and your knee pads and all your softball bats and everything. No, we had to play with whatever we could make. You know, our baseball was rolled up duct tape or electrical tape. At school, after lunch, we had all these milk cartons, and so we invented this game called Tackle the Man with the Milk Carton. And that's what we did, and the idea was, yes, if you had the milk carton, you got tackled. No, and one day, the school had to call my mom because I got tackled. I was the one with the milk carton. I broke my collarbone. And she took me to the hospital, the emergency room. They x-rayed it. I had broken it. They gave me this sling I had to wear for 6 weeks. And when I was done and I'd healed up, I took that sling off. It stunk really bad, by the way. And I went and I did the smart thing because I learned. I learned that don't be the one carrying the milk carton so often. But I went back and I played the game, and you know what happened? Within 2 weeks after getting my strap off my collarbone, I broke it again, playing Tackle the Man with a milk carton. This time my mom came, and I said, are we going to the hospital? She goes, no, you're going home. And so she took me home. I said, Mom, I think it's broke on this side. I broke the other one. She goes, yeah, you did. I don't need an x-ray. And she went and she grabbed this smelly old thing I'd wore for 6 weeks and says, put this back on. And that's how I got healed. That's why I don't play Tackle the Man with the milk carton no more. But why am I saying this? Because I was getting to the game I really liked. That was tag. You know, we played tag. Tag is, you get tagged, you're it. Nobody wants to be it in tag. And so I was, and you know what the rule is? Do you know how you not to be it in tag? You got to make it to home base. You got to be on home base, because if you're on home base, you can't be tagged. And that was my goal. And I remember that this week as I'm thinking about this sermon, I go, that's really all I ever wanted to be for my kids and my grandkids, and hopefully my great-great-grandkids one day. That's what me and your mom always wanted to be. We wanted to be your home base, where you'd feel safe, an anchor that wasn't tied into the world and all the worldly stuff, but was tied to God and our commitment to Him. Because we have found in our commitment to our Heavenly Father that our commitment to our kids have just grown and grown. And we care not only about them, but about their friends. I'm so glad to have my neighbor here today with his boys, and they brought a friend. That's what we need to be doing. We need to be going to our neighbors and inviting people to Christ and inviting them to church. And so that's what I want to be. I want to be home base for my family. Verse 6, my kids are going to love this one. It says this: you need to marry and have sons and daughters. Find wives for your sons and give your daughters in marriage, so that they too may have sons and daughters. Increase in number, do not decrease. God says we need to prioritize marriage as a legacy of our family. That's not the message of the world, I promise. I looked up a recent poll. 39% of Americans say marriage is an obsolete concept. But it wasn't in my home, and it wasn't going to be in my kid's life. And it's funny, this verse says that as a dad, I'm to take an active role in the selection of my children's mate. Look, they're all embarrassed right now. They don't even want to look up. Hey, Steve, how you doing, man? I remember when Steve was dating. Steve had something different going on in my life. He was good looking. I was the nerdy kid with the glasses and the bad haircut. No girl ever came up to me, but not Steven. He was handsome, and he always had these girls coming, and I didn't know what the advice to give them, because I never had any girls coming after me. But one day he brought home Nicole. Where is Nicole? Is she here? Oh, really? She's here though, right? She's in there. Okay, that's good that she's out of here. Anyway, he brought Nicole home, and I could tell he really was serious about her. Oh, she's back. Sorry, Nicole, I'm talking about you. I knew he was serious about her because they dated for a while, and one day he was like, "She's left me," and he was crying, and I go, "Man, come on, dude," And I finally sat down. I just started to talk with him, and I said, "What do you want? What do you want out of life? You want to be married?" He goes, "I want to be married, Dad." And I said, "So is that what you want in a wife?" He goes, I want a wife who also believes in Jesus." He did tell me that. I want a wife that wants to have kids, and I said, "Well then, at the time I don't think Nicole knew Christ as her Savior yet." And she started dating Stephen, and they started coming to church, and I remember the day at another church when Nicole, during this cycle, walked the aisle. I think your dad was there too, and they both asked Christ to be the Savior of their life. And they would date about another couple of years after that, and it seemed to be getting pretty serious to me, the dad, and I really liked Nicole a lot. And I said to my son, "You either marry her or move on, dude." I said, "This is the one," And to this day, when they have an argument, I know that my son will throw that up in her face. I'm only here because my dad made me marry you. Right? He uses that one from time to time. He does, but that's true, because I was taking an active role in my kid's life. It meant a lot to me that they would marry people that not only did they love, but believed and wanted the same things that they wanted, and that was to have children and to tell them about Christ. Not to make much of me or my family, but to reach the lost. There's a lot of lost people out there. When Melissa was dating Alan, oh my goodness. I remember bringing Alan home the first time. Alan, I got to tell him, man, he had like a tongue ring. He had a tongue ring in his tongue. I go, and I made fun of him. I go, "What's that in your tongue, man? What's that in your tongue?" And it's like, and I know I embarrassed him a little bit. And I don't know, Stephen, you didn't like him. I didn't like him too much. And we weren't sure about him. And I remember going into Melissa's room one day. She's dating him, and I go, "What's up with this Alan?" And she goes, "I love him, Dad." I go, "You don't love him? You ain't even known him that long." And she goes, "Well, I like him a lot." "Well, does he believe in Jesus?" I asked her that. And she goes, I don't know. I haven't asked him yet. And I said, why haven't you asked him? He says, because I don't want to mess it up. I don't want to scare him off. I go, Melissa. You remember that talk? Oh, yeah. She's blocked it out. But over the course of Alan dating her, he began to come to church with her. And I remember one day, just me and Alan, we sat on our back porch, and we talked, I don't know, forever. I said, what do you want to know, man? What do you want to talk about? Dinosaurs, and, he came from a different background, and he had a belief in God. He had been exposed to God for friends, and through the course of our talk, we just talked a long time. I could tell you right now, Alan's one of my best friends that I have. And then one day, as he's dating Melissa, we're planning this little church. We're over on FM 3000, and Alan, I wasn't expecting. At the end of the service, I stand up here, and I just want to give people an opportunity that if they want to give their life to Christ, that they can come, and make it a public thing. And I had preached a sermon. I don't remember what it was, but I wasn't expecting anybody to walk. And here comes Alan, and he grabs my hand. He's just shaking like a leaf. And it reminded me of the time I went down the first time in camp, and I was just shaking. And I just remember him saying, I want Christ to be the Lord of my life. And you don't see him back there in the dark all the time, but when we're singing, he's praising God, and he loves God, and he serves faithfully here all the time. And I really appreciate him. Matter of fact, he got to move into my house for about 6 weeks. It felt like a year. How long was it? During the freeze of 2021, and I got to tell you, I gave him every dad talk that I've ever had over the course of that time, and we've grown close. And then there was Caleb. Caleb is not here. Caleb's not here. He's working today. He works at the hospital, but I didn't vet Caleb. Stephen did that one. My older son. He was grown up now, and he made sure he worked with Caleb, and he's the one that vetted him and told me that Caleb's he's a good young man, Dad. Believes in God, comes from a good family, and Leanne and Caleb became high school sweethearts. And by the way, she did bring another guy home before him. He lasted for one day. I said, no, that dude's out of here. And we joke, but I didn't really have to do a lot with Caleb. Because Stephen had already checked him out for me. I think when he did, and he was the only one, by the way, that actually came up to me and says he would like to have permission to marry my daughter. Can you believe that? In 2000, when was that? Oh, man. And I already loved him. And I said, well, you better take care of her because I don't have a problem going back to prison, boy. I know some of this may be odd and strange in 2024 to say, but this is what Christians we've been called to do, to raise up families, to know Christ, to have children that know Christ. And some of you may be thinking, well, my kids are grown, but it's never too late. It's never too late to get involved in your kid's life, and it's never too late to get involved in your grandkid's life. And hopefully, like me, you hope you're around long enough to be involved in the great-grandkids' life. I thought about it. Parents nowadays, they try to be involved in every aspect of their child's life. They do. Every decision, what school they're going to attend, what sports they're going to play, making sure their socks match. But when it comes to the most important decision they will ever make, that's going to affect them for the rest of their life, our advice is, if you love them, that's all that matters. And I go, no. Life is not a Beatles song. All you need is love. You need more than that. And I'm looking at my grandkids. Oh, man, I lost count. 7 girls. No? How many girls? Oh, thank goodness. I thought I had 10. I just got 9. We got 6 girls. And I need families raising good men for those 6 girls. And I got 3 boys, Braden, sit up straight, brother. He's the first one. He's going to be the first one. It's getting close. And I know your dad's going to vet everybody that comes through that girl. But I'm going to be there too, backing them up. And I'm going to be backing up all those girls. Leanne had how many? 4. 4 girls. I'm going to stay involved. I ask that you stay involved in your family's life. Make your family important because that's your future. It's not you. It's not you. We're always consumed about our future. Be consumed about your family's future. Make that the thing that is on your heart. And then it says that so that they too may have sons and daughters. And they will increase. God says you're going to be here a long time. Okay? This is a multi-generational God. We need to teach and train church. We need to be a part of the teaching and training of the kids that come in here. We need to teach and train our children to love God because He loves them. And to get married and have boatloads of kids that love God and that will continue to shine the light of Christ into a dark, dark world. Again, our society doesn't put a premium on children. Many consider them to be a burden, not a blessing. But where does a legacy come from if we don't put a premium on our kids? Christians, our desire should be to raise and train and launch as many kids as we can for the glory of God. But we're losing the battle. So many young people don't see the importance of keeping God first in their lives. They don't even know about God, many of them. But Jesus is the key if they're ever going to have a hope for a future in overcoming the world. Think about this. Your kids are not going to overcome what's getting ready to hit them if they don't have Christ in their life. I was reading about this. Most women that go to put up a child for an adoption, for whatever life is thrown at them, for whatever the circumstance is, whether these women are Christian or they're not Christian, they will almost all the ways ask for and hope for and pray for a good Christian family to adopt their child. Why is that? Because these women know there's something special about those who follow Him. We're here for the long haul. And if you're living for you and what you're trying to accomplish in your life, you're living for the wrong thing. You need to be living for what you're going to leave behind. Because believe me, it comes up quick. It comes up fast. And all the things that we seek out in this world that we think we love, your kids are going to worship something. Taylor Swift, Fortnite, whatever. They're worshiping something out there. Money, sports. Train and teach them to worship the one that will help them overcome the world, and that's Jesus Christ. Let's live in a way so that when we die, we have left the world off in a better than we got here. That's my heart. And it ain't going to be me that's going to do it. It's going to be your kids and your kids' kids and your kids' kids' kids. That's your legacy. Let's say it. For I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord. Plans to prosper you and to not to harm you. And plans to give you and your family a hope and a future. That's your future. Leanne's going to play us a song. Would y'all stand and sing with me today?
Desire
Thank you. If anybody wants to talk to me or my wife or anybody, we're here. We have people that can talk to you. And if you have any questions about our church or about Christ, we're here for you. I want to remind you, next Sunday is Palm Sunday. We're going to read Luke chapter 20. We're going to go to the cross. So for your homework, Luke 23. I think that's the chapter. Or it's the chapter before. I can't remember. I think it's 23, though. And then we're going to come back for Easter. And this is your time. Invite people to come to church. And we'll share Christ in a meaningful way here, I know. In song and message and Sunday school. And don't forget our Sunday school. It's at 10 o'clock. I know we don't call it Sunday school, life groups. Sunday school seems like work. So we call them life groups, so you come for that. We thank you for coming to church today. You all got a good smile. I'm going to let you out a little early today. No, this is late. Again, I'm 5 minutes late. We're going to get that clock moved as soon as we can get an 8-foot, 10-foot ladder, whatever it takes. Y'all say good, what is it? Say hello to that good-looking person next to you. There you go. That's what I say.